Hey there, and welcome back to Dead Space 3. We are actually alone together for the moment, you and I. Sally and Crow will be here in a minute. They're running a little bit late on the interstellar shuttle bus. In the meantime, we get to poke around this little makeshift shelter that Ellie, Buckle, and Santos made while they were waiting for our arrival, doing a little bit of their own research. Up here in the command saucer, you can see boxes and piles of stuff. I love the set dressing in here. You know, some weapon parts and circuits and stuff to collect. We can take those over to the bench, which we will do in just a minute to juice up our guns before we get back to the action. It turns out, Ellie and Isaac are two of a kind. They both leave their diary everywhere they go. Ellie's diary is kinda pivotal here. It's important information. This thing outlines what she and the entire Eudora crew have actually been up to in between games, including some pretty critical backstory about herself and Carver. But don't worry, I read the other half myself. For longtime fans, it may not be too surprising that it's found in extended universe material. Dead Space as a series has always featured expanded universe material to further tie the games into one big unified knot of intestines, and Dead Space 3 is no exception. A graphic novel tie-in written by Ian Edgington and illustrated by Christopher Shy was announced several months before release, promising to bridge the gap between Dead Space 2 and 3. Not for Isaac. In fact, Marker Boy doesn't feature in it at all. Dead Space Liberation is for Ellie. And equally importantly, Carver. The story provides character building and context you won't find in the game itself for the relationships between the members of the Eudora crew. It closely follows Carver and Ellie as they meet under the most tragic of circumstances and proceed to escape Danik's clutches. John's wife, Demara Carver, was a marker researcher on the planet Uxor. We'll cover the family's half of the story later. Her research eventually led to the location of the SCAF fleet, and it was thanks to Demara Carver that Ellie is able to make contact and eventually make the jump. In the process, they rescue Santos and Buckle, discuss their personal trauma together intimately, escape countless necromorphs, and Carver is captured and tells Danik he had sex with his mom, which is the funniest exchange in a piece of Dead Space media. It's a genuine attempt to give more life to a story that, as we'll soon see, left a lot of its life on the operating room floor. In my opinion, it's an overwhelming success. Buckle and Santos actually appear in it. Look, there they are! Norton is here too, and he's actually a pretty cool guy. He mans his little crew as desperately but effectively as one would if you were the last bastion against the Unitology menace and their giant crab ship monster thing. Liberation takes Dead Space and turns it into a swashbuckling thriller, and I mean swashbuckling. The ships and even the necromorphs have this very unique, almost nautical theme, partially thanks to inspiration from the game itself, and hugely thanks to Christopher Shy's fascinating photo-moshing illustrations. It's really worth looking through the novel, which you can find online for free basically anywhere nowadays, just to see such a wild sci-fi imagination like that expressed. The nautical theme carries over to Dead Space 3, and that'll be our transition back into the game. After all, the colony of Roanoke was reached twice by water. Man, I kinda wish someone had been here to hear that joke. Hey guys! I see you made it.
So the talent agent says to the family, okay, but what do you call your act? And the family in unison responds, the aristocrats!
Oh.
Damn, timed that one perfectly, didn't they?
Oh man, I missed the whole setup. I was busy talking about the motivations of the characters before the events of the game.
Okay, it's just one giant dick joke. Let's not go crazy here.
Yeah, speaking of one giant dick joke.
Hi, I'm Blind Sally.
We stuck all the damaged circuits we can into our gun here. We gotta get a move on Sally and Crow. Shaking the smoke out of my computer still.
Isaac, I'm sorry about
Shaking the smoke out of this relationship.
Huh?
I mean, that was quick.
The world is ending and all you can think about is us?
Damn right. I never gave up on you.
Oh no, you get up on the world.
I paid my dues. Or don't you think I'm fucked up enough already?
Isaac, this is
I was more of a McAfee guy.
without your help.
I mean, he was the type to install antiviruses. That is pretty fucked up.
I have a choice.
Carver, meanwhile, is floating out in space somewhere, just going like, "Man, I use malware bytes. Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, Carver would. I now have more, like, newfound respect and appreciation for Carver.
Carver's definitely got an android.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
This place got a hell of a lot more grodier since the last time we were here, about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, this situation seems oddly familiar, doesn't it? Last time, we had the assistance of a hired gun, let's say. Or maybe we're the hired gun in this situation. But this time, we're doing it all on our lonesome. Glad we brought our tools of terror.
Yeah, no, in Carver's case, it's the assistance more like of a hire gun, more than a hired gun.
Nice. I love the giant arrows and little twisting things here, like very realistic design for like mechanics and engineering in the Dead Space world, and like as functional gameplay hints, right?
It is pretty wonderful, isn't it? I mean, you can see them up there all along the walls and the floor, the ceiling, right there in front of me. There's even more of them. This really does remind me of Dead Space 1, too. I love that everything is clearly marked in-universe, but also in a way that benefits you as the person trying to learn how to operate it. It's wonderful.
Because, like, I'd like the co-op twist that they do on this puzzle where, like, both players have to be, like, actively operating both halves of the puzzle at the same
Nice,
time.
CJ.
Yeah. And so, like, one person, yeah, their field of vision is always going to be tilted downwards so they can't see what's going on at the top of the screen. And the other person's vision is going to be tilted upwards so they can't see what's going on at the top of the screen. So, like, you really have to rely on one another to just get the full picture of what's going on here.
At the end of the last episode, we mentioned that the puzzle, quote-unquote, was not so much one for your brain to solve, rather, it was a decision to be made between the two players, which one of you would be better at which job. And I like that a lot. I really like that. They allow you to kind of customize your experience beyond just what your guns are good at, but also like what your buddy on the couch is good at. It's really neat. You could also look at who has more supplies and give them to each other. But you do occasionally have to take breaks because the necromorphs don't stop even when their own detritus is blocking your path. Our tools really are doing the work here, though. My god, the line gun is insane in this game. In previous Dead Space games, the line gun and other plasma-based weapons, they had piercing, but the line pierced in segments, which kind of like destroyed themselves after they pierced. Now they don't. They just keep on going until they hit a wall. So you can cut through entire hallways of necromorphs without stopping. It really rules.
It does.
And
just to
you can
confirm.
put a rotator cuff on it so that it can rotate like the plasma cutter now for no reason. It rules.
It does. That thing, that detritus tentacle that you had to pick up, can you not walk through it? Does it actually have weight and block you if it happens to fall in the walkway?
Yes, sir, it does. Yes, sir, it does. It's pretty wonderful. I love that just by coincidence, it can end up blocking your path and forming an impromptu obstacle.
That is cool.
Speaking of impromptu obstacles, didn't we power on the ship on our way up? Doesn't that mean that we're gonna have to deal with rotating fans on the way back?
Oh my god. Oh my.
Oh, great.
What
Blades? It wouldn't be an action game from the Nintendo 64 era if they didn't have a shaft filled with rotating blades, I guess.
Convergence.
Now it's our turn.
I'm so glad Dead Space 3 could break new ground.
And hey, it is new ground, because unlike Dash, we don't need to chisel away at our own face and chest on the blades. We could slow them down
God,
because
the
we brought
music.
stasis!
The music! This is incredible.
Gaming is wonderful and transformative.
All secure here.
How are the others?
They'll live. I'll meet you at the Admiral's quarters.
For the record, we literally recorded Gaul tonight for Shadows of the Empire, so this is weirding both me and Sally the fuck out.
The smile on my face when I sent this video to you yesterday was palpable. when you said we
Are
were
you like a-
recording Gaul today.
Like, seriously, are you like a fucking Time Lord? Do you have like a DeLorean in your garage?
I do have the ability to go back in time, actually. I'll demonstrate later in this very video, don't worry. For now, we got problems. The necromorphs have now also all woken up because we're just making so much noise. I love it. I love the way this operates as sort of a tomb, that we are just opening door after door, crypt after crypt, and all of the necromorphs are like, you know, I'm kind of hungry. Meanwhile, Isaac and Ellie and Norton are all getting distracted by their own puzzling brains, their own puzzling brain meat. Like, what do we make of this relationship drama stuff so far? I feel like they're all getting distracted.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be total drama space 3 if there wasn't a little bit of manufactured discontent amongst our contestants.
That's, you know, that is a good way to describe it, is it feels manufactured. Where it's like they immediately got to the hostilities. Crow, I assume you're on that page?
Somewhat too as well, because like it's also effectively justifying like Norton's presence in the plot, because like if you needed like sort of a leader / like co-op person to just like drag Isaac kicking and screaming like into the narrative properly, like you've got that in Carver. Whereas, like, yeah, you sort of needed, like, a guy who's somewhat disconnected from the gameplay and stuff, but also provides you your modus operandi for being there. And yet, once he fulfills that mission in the narrative, you need to get rid of him somehow. And what a better way to do that than just, you know, making him completely unlikable by introducing this relationship drama.
It's very true.
Yeah.
He feels forced. Like, his frustration towards Isaac, I don't know, like, well, we just knocked a buck's head off the wall. It feels like two bucks sort of just like marking off territory and hitting each other. Like,
that's surely the metaphor that they're going for. And you laugh, but I genuinely believe it. Look at the shape of Isaac's own helmet and the shape of this big dumb thing. I wish the game had been more of this, because speaking of Carver, if only he had that presence. Am I right?
Ellie, Carver, reach the Admiral's quarters. Isaac's.
nice.
Hey, Isaac.
Carver, your presence is a
Isaac?
present.
Carver, what's going on?
Isaac. Hey. Hey!
What is it? What's going on?
Nothing. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
On a relative scale, it's a sliding scale of fineness with Isaac Clarke.
Obsessed with making it.
You know, I love the fact that, like, Isaac is going, like, it's fine, and you can barely see Carver over his shoulder, just giving him the squinty eyes going, yeah, bullshit it is.
Sort of alien device. A machine. I think that she believed that it controlled the markers.
Oh my god.
Now, when you say believed, people who made markers believe a lot of things.
Or instructions.
Yeah, this is like a moment
Exactly what
where
we've been looking for.
that sort of like
This is
high-pitched
just some random
siren scream from
cryptography.
Prometheus
They
should just
found
start
the
blasting.
source. The marker
You got it,
holo.
I'll add it in post.
Shitting me.
Oh god.
All right, let's regroup in the control room. We can plan our next move from there.
Clark, shake it off. Let's go. Clark!
Wanna know something cool?
Go on.
In the original LP, we made fun of this game for vanishing Carver into the ether, but I've since played the Dead Space 3 alpha released in some pirate community from 2012-ish, before this game released. They put an NPC Carver in the hallway underneath the buck there.
Oh, no way.
He is removed in the final game.
Aw.
Mea culpa, Visceral. Legitimately. They actually did try to avoid the vanishing Carver wherever they could, and sadly, for technical reasons, they couldn't just plop NPC Carvers everywhere.
Well, that kind of sucks.
But at least they left this room as intact as it was. I love this room. It tells such a wonderful story of how the captain went mad being locked in here.
Soldiers that could be fighting the war back home.
I do get real BioShock vibes off of this room.
Very much so. Very much so.
General, oh good God.
I love the little desk model of the ship.
Yeah.
We are out of resources.
Yeah, because, like, I think like that's like more or less like as close to a model like the HMS Terror or the Erebus as like Visceral could have modeled, right?
I mean, surely it's modeled after at least something of the era.
Your quarters to give you a full briefing.
You must be out of your goddamn
General, you are dismissed.
Classic. This is a real wartime classic. Of course, it's what these
there we
weirdos
go.
would be listening to on their maiden
Nice.
voyage. Based on that second log, it kind of seemed like she was really, really dedicated to that whole mission of turning off. What was she turning off? The machine that controlled the markers, I assume. I have this weird sense of foreboding about how they interpreted that message, you know?
Yeah, especially considering if you look around, like the Admiral's quarters, there's a lot of unitology, basically, like cult books, for lack of a better term, like hymns and like prophecies and.
Yeah.
Shuttle's our only shot. Where is it?
The biggest ship of the fleet, the Terra Nova. It's a long walk.
Hey, I can upgrade my oxygen.
Some way to travel between ships.
Because, yeah, like, just thinking back to Norton for a while, like, you know, like, the script doesn't really do him a lot of favors, like, on its head, but, like, I do sort of get what they were going for, where it's, like, under ideal circumstances, yeah, he would be, like, a very competent leader, that people, like, you could see, like, sort of following and, like, respecting as a captain. Unfortunately, he's kind of found himself in the middle of a goddamn space zombie apocalypse, so he is now wildly out of his depth.
Indeed.
Crow.
That's
Yeah.
the graphic novel covers that. I mentioned it briefly, and then there you are. The graphic novel.
Seriously?
It doesn't redeem Norton in any way, but it gives him that depth that the game avoids, sadly. Sally, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was going to say, just jumping off Crow's comment, that Norton is Space HBO's Daenerys Targaryen.
And that he's gonna go insane when some bells ring and burn them all.
Well, in that, like, you can kind of see what they were going for with him as a character, but it was, like, rushed and executed so poorly, it did not land at all.
That still is true in the game we got. That still is completely true.
Yeah, they jump from point A to point B to point C to point Z
Yeah.
in his characterization.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're like, wait, you know, why didn't people get what we were doing with him here?
And finally harness the energy for ourselves. And if this works,
What could possibly go wrong if we follow it?
Well, judging the fact that we're literally sifting around through the aftermath of all of this bullshit, probably a lot.
Ah! Yeah, speaking of sifting, the Leapers are a little bit more proficient at it than they were in Dead Space 2 and 3. They are agile, Dead Space 1 and 2. They're agile as hell in 3, is what I meant to say. And they already were amped up from Dead Space 1.
They move really fast.
Everything in this damn game is more agile. Everything rushes you. Making use out of my kinesis here. Dead Space allows you to basically have all of Isaac's tools at once. You've got kinesis from limbs, kinesis from stuff in the environment, stasis, 2 guns, and you've got furious anger at the necromorphs to make use of.
Nice. I love the head shake. I noticed that they... sorry, go ahead, Crow.
I was just gonna say that, and this is also amped up for co-op as well, where they throw even more of these fuckers at you.
Indeed, and I don't mind it. The final move of this game from horror to action, if we must make that comparison, was making the necromorphs as aggressive as you just saw. That was insane. On controller, I would have to whip out my force gun or maybe even melee my way out of that. But it is kind of fascinating in a way how the game remains balanced even so. I did get out of that. And if I had Carver with me, it would have been a little easier, at the very least. It's fascinating. Speaking of fascinating, I love how each of these hallways progressively tells a story leading up to the quarantine door. Look at how it's covered in blood now that we can see the inside. The very end, they were trying so hard to keep the necromorphs from escaping.
Yeah, that's good. The visual storytelling, like, it's very, like, System Shock in nature, right?
For sure. You get to walk through the set piece backwards and see their story play out in front of you.
There you are.
Where is everyone?
Finding a way off this wreck. Santos, tell him what we found.
Of course. We found a little maintenance craft. A skip.
A what?
Doesn't go very far or very fast, but it will take you to the outermost ship.
A skip.
Here, I'm sending you the coordinates.
Now, let's get the shuttle so we can head home already.
Robert, we are not going home.
I remember being confused in the first game, thinking that they were saying skiff incorrectly.
Skip.
That would be an okay thing to call it. That would be a thematically alright thing to call the skip. It is,
right?
It is a wonderful little transport craft, even if we're only using it up in space where having skis wouldn't really help us any. So,
Like, I wonder if that, like, just renaming it was, like, intentional. Like, it is, like, the play on skiff, and they just called it skip because it's, you know...
Yeah, I don't like that. That annoys me.
oh, hey, Carver.
Oh, hello! That was a nice transition.
Oh, thank you. I guess Carver's been hanging around outside after the Admiral's quarters. He took the hell off. He really didn't wait for us.
I mean, did you see what was happening up there with all the weird shit that was going on? I do not blame him for wanting to get the fuck away from it as fast as he can.
I guess that is fair. Out in space, technically that's the safest place to be from the marker signal.
Yeah.
This sense of isolation almost, where you can't be touched by it. There are no walls to scrawl anything on, or like, I don't know, codes to repeat over your fucking radio to everyone on your team. Isaac, what are you doing? Like, while we're out here enjoying the nice space exploration gameplay of Dead Space 3, what the hell, Isaac? He walks up and he just gets taken over by it. I love that. That Carver's the one to shake him out of it and be like, hey, player one, could you stop going insane for half a second? It rules.
There were also noticeably fewer Leapers out here, so...
I wish the Leapers were out here in space in this damn game. In Dead Space 2, they were. So many of the space enemies from Dead Space 2 don't appear in space in 3, and it makes me wonder if it was a code thing. Purely a code or memory limitation. It stinks, because it limits what's a really cool idea. This, going around to this derelict fleet and blowing it apart for resources. Can you imagine, right? The Crozier is a piece of shit, but it's the only one we need to get down to the planet. So can you imagine going to the other ones, the Franklin, for example, which now has been exploded. We're actually collecting pieces of the Franklin while we're going around doing all this salvaging. Can you imagine junking them to bits and then crafting guns and shit out of it? It would have been such a cool system.
Because, yeah, like, I mentioned this, like, in the original LP that we did about, like, yeah, just the Scav Fleet version, or section of Dead Space 3 honestly seemed like the most interesting part of the game to me, and I wish, like, yeah, just this was the entire game, just going through and, yeah, just exploring all of these ships in this big sort of semi-open world above the planet in zero gravity, and occasionally, yeah, you'll go into, like, gravity areas.
Yeah, really. Because this is beautiful, but it could have been revolutionary for 2013 if they had focused on this system, if they had the budget or the time given to them by EA to focus on making this what it should have been.
Don't forget EA not meddling with the development.
Exactly. EA meddling with this game's development is an enormous part. Their unrealistic expectations and their very, very modest budget and time restraints for Dead Space 3 neutered what could have been a really, really interesting and almost progressive for gaming experience. That four-dimensional gun crafting, I can just imagine it, right? I love this game. I really do. It is flawed in such easy to recognize ways. It is such a perfect window into how publishers meddling with the game makes it objectively worse.
Because we're gonna see, like, coming up in the subsequent videos, like, just seeing, like, full, like, ship areas and levels that we're going to go to, like, amongst the SCAF fleet, and also, like, we'll get a bit of a taste of it with, like, the chunks of debris that are sort of just out there in, like, the peripheral of, like, each main area ship. Because it's like, I'm just thinking, like, you know, they could have done, like, a sort of, like, a hybrid of, like, the various ship levels and those debris chunks, where it's like, okay, like, you have to go through a ship that is, like the Shackleton, basically just halfway exploded, and, like, you're in, like, flipping back and forth between, like, zero gravity and, like, on-ground walking sections.
There are many wonderful ideas of what this game could have been that Visceral actually actively tried to realize. There's tons of concept art of exactly what Crow described being the original idea for this game, and today, it would have been completely possible. Back then, it was barely possible, and for trying to do it, Visceral deserved so utterly much credit that they did not get, and they should get. Before the remake of Dead Space comes out as of the recording of this video, Visceral's reputation was one that lost track of a series that had perfect rails which it came off of. But Dead Space 3, in my opinion, stayed on exactly the rails Visceral guided it upon, to the train crash that EA predestined it for. Dead Space 3 is emblematic of this era of gaming, where production was usurped by publishing and corporatism and money. It's sad to see that a game like this had its potential squandered, but you and I together, Crow, Sally, and the viewers, we can see what's beautiful about Dead Space 3. And the effort that Visceral put in to realize the vision that they had. Even if forces that were beyond their control tried to stop them along the way.
C. Jacobs.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Thanks, man.
We somehow, I don't know, activated the correct triggers to create such an impassioned, like, reflection upon Visceral. Cued perfectly to the music. That was brilliant.
Thanks, man. The modus operandi of this LP, its thesis statement, was right there in the past 30 seconds.
Are you contacting me on a private channel?
And speaking of tonal shifts, here's this fuck.
Yeah.
Of course it'd be him.
We're taking sides now?
I know you two had a thing, but she's mine now, and I love her too much to let her do this.
She's mine now.
Eat my entire ass, Norton.
We both know how this is going to end. If they found a way to stop the markers 200 years ago, don't you think we'd all be safe by now? It doesn't add up.
Also, neat little bit of trivia about this dick swinging contest going on right now. If you're playing co-op and you're playing as Carver, you are not privy to this big cock contest. Basically, yeah, you don't get the audio and you don't get the video for it. It's only the player who is playing as Isaac that gets this scene here.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
I wish they did more stuff like that, where player one can secondhand describe how much of a jerk Norton was. I can exaggerate as much as I want just how much of a prick he was, so that the Carver player can kind of, like, turn against him too a little bit. If the Carver player didn't hear the conversation and didn't see that Norton actually kind of had a little bit of a point. He was a real dick about it, but he is right. They don't seem to have found a solution to stopping the signal, other than the captain's crazed ramblings about it. We're gonna need to dig a little harder.
Transmission.
Do you guys hear this? My rig's picking up some kind of looping message.
It sounds encrypted. It's coming from the research vessel CMS Greeley. This could be really important.
If I get a
Nah,
chance,
North
I'll check
America's
into
too
it.
far away this time of year. Oh, Norton, stop it.
Oh, you beat me to
What
it.
a negative Nancy. What a wet blanket, that Norton.
He said, if I get a chance, I smell side mission.
Why, in fact, you do. A little bit of mid-mission vacationing. Do a side mission in a Dead Space game. How novel. So we can go and check those out at any time we want.
And speaking of fucking around, I assume Crow is still dicking around doing... Oh, there he is.
Yeah, he sure is. He's gonna save my bacon. I very much would like to hear that signal.
Yeah, speaking about something that important and that you need to be paying attention to, look out for that mine.
Ah! Well, I've gone completely deaf.
Yeah, no need to thank me or anything.
What's that?
What?
Nothing.
Ah, you know what? It was a silent thank you. It was a nod of thanks. So yes, there are optional side missions in Dead Space 3 where you explore bigger flotilla ships on, you know, a grander scale with story content involved instead of just junked spacecraft that you can plumb. Speaking of plumb, yeah, you know what? You go for it.
I was gonna say, speaking of plumbing, watch this drive. Wee.
That's an aspect of this game I love so much, is the ability to watch the other guy do stuff from a distance. Crow protecting me from the mine there that I legitimately didn't know was there. Oh, it's so wonderful. Next time, my friends, we will go and crack apart one of those ships and plummet for all the resources, just knowledges, blah, 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 ha, ha. Fuck!
Just end on that. Just end on that.
I'm definitely ending on that.
Gonna take a sentimental journey. Gonna say